YouTube, Dawson Writer here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Power Rangers Lightning Collection and just a free-form discussion video. Again, I still think of it as ABC Family, but we're gonna have a free-form discussion. That was kind of inspired by, I recently reviewed the Lightning Collection remastered figures for MMPR, talking about whether they're worth it or not, and I'll link that video. But in the conclusion of that, when I was doing kind of the final verdict, one of the reasons I said they might not be worth it is because when the Lightning Collection comes back, I'm thinking they might do another version of MMPR, depending on the context of how they come back. And it got me thinking of, I'm curious how and when the Lightning Collection will return. As of this moment, all we know is that they're taking a hiatus off for sure a year. Right now, as of this recording, it's 2023, and we're really winding down, even more so than I thought we would be. Like, obviously I knew we were taking this hiatus, but I honestly thought there was gonna be a couple more announcements of stuff that we didn't know about, that were kind of just in the pipeline that we were going to trickle out maybe into the next year, but it really feels more like we're winding down. It felt like that PulseCon where we got the Master Morpher and the Omegas was really the last of it for now. You know, I did stop following, I followed the core Lightning Collection news, but I stopped following like all the scoopers or whatever that were like digging for the codes and stuff and then getting mad when there was no surprises. It's like, that whole community is just terrible. It's like one of the worst sides of the PR fandom is the Lightning Collection fandom. So I just kind of stopped. So I know that there's maybe some stuff, or would have known that like there's no codes or there's codes we know about. But bottom line is I assumed there was going to be a little bit more before this hiatus. Again, it feels like we're winding down faster than I thought. But after this, we are going to be taking a break for at least a year. But I'm curious to like, why are we going to take more of a year, or is it just going to be a year? You know, because there's a couple different ways this could play out. You know, obviously we're kind of on a purposeful show hiatus too until the reboot happens, when and if it happens. Right now, it is still supposedly happening. You know, I'm prepared always for them to shelve it and stuff like that. There is some people there, weirdly, that still think the reboot is a rumor, even though it's been announced officially multiple times. Again, it very well could be canceled, but as of this moment, it has been officially announced. But there's a bit of a break for the show, and I think that there's kind of an intentional break because they want to like bring the reboot back and be like, Power Rangers is back and it's a new era and stuff like that, and kind of take this break and this separation between the old show and the old stigma and whatever comes next. I think that's intentional, but I'm really curious how that's going to correspond to the collectibles of it all, especially since Hasbro is a toy company, so they're even more intertwined. Like, Power Rangers and toys have always gone hand in hand, obviously, because, you know, they're based off of Sentai, which is just a glorified toy commercial. And, you know, and back in the day, it was like Bandai and Saban were separate, but it was a partnership. But now they're like intrinsically tied together, so you have all these connections you wouldn't make previously, like people being like, oh my god, this figure's terrible, Hasbro's trying to take the brand, even though the toy quality doesn't have anything to do with the show quality. You know what I mean? Anyway, the point is it's interesting to think about, like, what their plan for that is. Like, as of this moment, the reboot has faced numerous delays, and likely more because of these strikes. You know, the writer, as of this recording, they're supposedly at the tail end of the actor strike negotiations. The writer strike has been resolved, but that obviously has probably put a further delay on anything that they were doing, like cast. Maybe they already cast, but you know what I mean. Regardless, there's further delays happening. So let's say hypothetically, the reboot takes even longer than they're thinking, because like everyone's thinking of 2024 as the gap year. And thinking the 2025 will be when we get the reboot or news of it. But let's say all the delays and possibly further changes or delays means the reboot wouldn't come out until 2026, 2027. Let's just say that for the sake of argument. Would that mean Hasbro would say, okay, we're not even going to bring the Lightning Collection back to that till then? Because I'm curious if they're going to just want to do one big relaunch, which is almost what I'm thinking of. Like, again, let's say the reboot comes out 2026 and they're like, Power Rangers is back. We got a reboot, we're going to have some collectibles for the reboot, and the Lightning Collection is returning, and here's the new figures, and it's all at once. Or if the reboot gets delayed further and they're like, okay, we were targeting 2025, but it's not going to happen until 2026, would Hasbro be like, okay, let's hold off and do the Lightning Collection then? Or are they going to be like, no, let's like pre-start and have the Lightning Collection return in 2025? There was also a part of me that questioned, like, are they maybe even just going to completely do something different, like rename it and do a totally different line? I haven't heard of Hasbro doing anything like that in regards to collectors' lines. Like, I don't have a rich history with that. The closest I've come to that is like Black Series and Marvel Legends, which I've collected on and off for years of just favorite characters, and those have been going on a long time, and they've never really changed them. They've always been called Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series, I think. I'm not sure, because I know that like the Black Series is kind of a new thing. I don't know. It's like the same idea. If it's a new name, it's at least the same idea. Because I know that like the lightsabers didn't used to be called Black Series, they used to be called Force FX. So I don't know. I don't know a detailed history of that, like whether there's precedent of them possibly changing the name, or maybe just doing like Lightning Collection Recharge, or maybe it'll just be Lightning Collection Returning. I'm just curious how that is going to go down. I was thinking about too, like because when they come back, it depends on how long the gap is. Like if it's just a year, you know, and there's still toys on the shelves, kind of, you know, they don't have much of a presence, to be honest, at least where I'm at. And then they come back, you know, it wouldn't be that unusual for them to kind of pick up where they left off, but with new sculpts and stuff, maybe do something like a remastered White Ranger to get an MMPR out there. But if they took a couple years off somehow, or longer than we thought, it would seem weird to pick up where you left off, which is where like my inspiration for this video came from, is talking about, I feel like when they come back, they're definitely going to do another version of MMPR, because if they take more than a year off, you can't relaunch and be like, Lightning Collection's back! Here's Lightspeed Rescue. Like, no one cares about Lightspeed Rescue outside of the core fandom. So, like, that would be a weird relaunch. They're gonna have to do a wave that has some MMPR in it to get the larger audience. As much as the core audience somehow thinks the casuals care about Time Force, they don't. So, I just can't imagine that they wouldn't do another MMPR reversioning. Not to mention, that is something I know and have history with Star Wars and Marvel figures, is they've done a ton of different versions of the same character. Whether it's like, hey, this was in a new episode, so we're basically going to make the same character, but he's got different accessories. Or they just straight up do like they've done with MMPR and do like, hey, version 2.0, 3.0. So it wouldn't be weird at all for us to get more MMPR figures. I'm just curious if like, how that's going to be presented. Like if they come back and be like, this is the Lightning Collection, but it's new, because I imagine part of the reason they're doing that is they know they're having QC problems, so there's going to be some sort of overhaul in terms of the quality and the molding. So yeah, I just can't imagine us picking up right where we left off, because I think that there's going to be some sort of marketing rebranding to a degree, like a new presentation, like all new Lightning Collection, that they're going to have to start with something like MMPR, you know, at least to a degree. Not that we wouldn't finish teams we got, but I can't imagine them starting with that, if that makes any sense. I'm also curious, like, what this means for other stuff, you know, in Lightning Collection realm that aren't the figures, because I feel like we barely got started with the other stuff. Oddly enough, it feels like helmets was the thing we got the most of, which isn't really true, but I mean, it just feels that way. Like, I can't even believe how little we got of the Morphers. Like, I'm sure there's some sort of reason or numbers or sales as to why it didn't happen, but I'm still honestly shocked that we did the main Morpher and then never did green and white. Apparently they wanted to, and then JDF was like, you should do the Master Morpher, which I'm glad they did that, but how did they never do green and white? Again, I'm not going to pretend I know more, because I hate when fans do that, but I just feel like logically, like, that seems like it would be a slam dunk, because often the Tommy stuff sells the most, and the fact that we did, like, pink and yellow's Morphers, which just shelf warmed and then went on clearance at GameStop before we did green. And I've said this before, but like the individual color Morphers are something that I totally could see them doing, because Bandai did it. But that's something you do when you're done with the main sellers. Like, we did green and white, we did MMPR's main Morpher. Like, what do we do before we have to move on to Zeo? Like, the movie Morphers or whatever. I don't know. So that's weird, but I'm curious, like with the Lightning Collection, would you also have them at the same time announcing like Zap is going to come back and the role-play weapons, or are they all going to roll out at different times, I guess like when the Lightning Collection first started? Because in a way, that's the thing I'm most looking forward to. They haven't all been perfect, but those have been mostly enjoyable, and I'm eager to see more role-play weapons of different stuff. Like, that's another thing I'm surprised we never got Saba and stuff like that. You know, I want to see more Morphers, I want to see more helmets. Zap felt like it barely got started. It felt like they kind of slowly improved, but then we kind of petered off, and there was that like announcement or discovery that there was going to be a white Tiger Zord Zap. Where is that still happening, or was that like in like pre-production enough that they were able to put the kibosh on it before they decided to take a break? So I'm curious, like, is that all that going to come back at once? Are they maybe just going to bring back that type of stuff first, like the Megazords and the weapons and the helmets, and then take their time on the figures? I don't know. I'd be really curious to see that. Like, my hope is when they do come back that I'm sure it's not going to be perfect, because, you know, again, I have collected their stuff, and their stuff isn't always perfect. It's very hit and miss even outside of Power Rangers, even though the fans like to act like PR is a perpetual victim, and they're a perpetual victim. I'm sure fans will still complain, because that's just fan culture nowadays, it's just nothing but complaining. But I do hope that they revisit things to get back to more of a balance, closer to what it was like when they first came out, where, you know, you had your problems, but a lot of it was stuff that wasn't that unusual, and you weren't having figures breaking. I hope in terms of like the role play stuff and the Megazords, which I think is kind of, you know, something that won't happen, but I'm hoping for a better correlation between price and quality, because I really felt like even some of the items I liked just didn't feel worth it for the price. Like, especially the Zap stuff is just like insanely expensive, but I kind of don't expect that. I do hope that they're good, but I'm definitely not expecting a world where the price and the quality correlates perfectly, because like, to use another Hasbro example, like the lightsabers are good. They're solid, but they're not worth $250. Like, when I remember when Force FX first came out, they were like $120 or $100 at Barnes and Noble or whatever. And now like the Star Wars lightsabers are like $250, which was usually the price for ones that were like Darth Maul's or maybe like Kylo Ren's, where you got a little bit of extra stuff. But like, it's insane. Like, they're solid, but they're definitely not worth $250, which is why whenever I get them, I always wait for a sale for the most part. So even when they come back and if they improve, I don't expect the price and quality to correlate in regards to that. But I'm really curious what they're going to do. My main prediction, I think, would be that they're trying to go for, like I said, a full relaunch where they bring everything back at once, where they do some collectibles for the reboot and they bring back the Lightning Collection. I think maybe if they do face too many delays and they want to get something out there, that the Lightning Collection might return first. But I think the idea is they're going to want everything to come out around the same time, or at least be announced at the same time. Like, even if like they come out in 2025 and say, reboot's coming in 2026 with the toys, but here's some Lightning Collection, I think we'll hear about their general plans at the same time. I'm just curious what will come back when. I'm almost more excited for, like I said, and hoping for more of the role play and other collectibles, just because I want them to take more time on the Lightning Collection figures, and I'm not looking forward to returning to Lightning Collection discourse. But what do you guys think? When do you think they're going to come back? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people that were like, they're trying to kill the brand, they're never coming back. But even if this plan falls through, I'm sure they'll come back at some point. But for the people that are interested in having a realistic conversation, when do you think they come back? When do you think their approach will be? Do you think they'll come back with the reboot, or do you think it'll be separate? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.